The hyperspace corridor collapsed into streaks of starlight as Anakin Skywalker's Delta 7 Aether Sprite fighter erupted into real space above Christophsis. Below him, the crystalline cityscape blazed with fire, turbo-laser batteries painting the sky red and gold, the concussive thunder of artillery rattling even the vacuum of space. His R2 unit chirped urgently from the astromech socket as 3 separatist vulture droids locked onto their position. Anakin's hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, that familiar rush of adrenaline mixed with something else, something hollow. He rolled the fighter into a spiral dive, the droids following like metallic predators. One burst of laser fire. 2. The lead vulture exploded in a brilliant flash. The others scattered, but he was already on them, closing the distance with the kind of aggressive flying that made Obi-Wan nervous and made the clones cheer. Another victory for the Republic. Another planet we'll lose next month. The battle was won. The Republic would hold Christophsis for another few weeks before the endless cycle continued. Anakin pulled his fighter up, ascending through the smoke and chaos, breaking through the atmosphere back into the clean silence of space. Down below, clone troopers were probably celebrating. General Skywalker had done it again, the hero with no fear. He felt nothing. Well, that wasn't entirely true. He felt tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix, in a way that even Padme's arms couldn't soothe anymore. The holocommunicator chimed, and Chancellor Palpatine's form materialized above the console, his grandfatherly face creased with concern that seemed genuine, and that was perhaps why Anakin trusted him more than he should have. Another victory, I hear. The Senate will be pleased. But tell me, my boy, when was the last time you truly connected with the Force? Not in battle, not in desperation, but in contemplation. Anakin's jaw tightened. The truth was, he couldn't remember. Every meditation session with the Council felt like a test he was failing. Every moment of stillness was interrupted by visions of Padme dying, of Ahsoka walking away forever, of darkness he couldn't quite see but could definitely feel. Palpatine's tone shifted to carefully neutral concern. The Council had new orders. Anakin was to oversee the transport of kyber crystals samples from Ilum. Routine logistics, really, beneath his talents. I suggested you might wish to make the journey yourself. The temple is suffocating, I think. Perhaps the Force is calling you to something the Jedi are too bound by tradition to see. There it was again, that subtle invitation to trust his own instincts over the Council's wisdom. It should have felt like manipulation, but instead it felt like permission. Something stirred in Anakin's chest at the mention of Ilum, the sacred ice world where the Force supposedly sang through frozen caverns and frequencies that predated the Republic itself, where Jedi younglings journeyed to claim their first crystals, where silence held weight. Anakin heard himself agree to make the request. Palpatine's smile was warm as he ended the transmission, but something in those final words lingered like frost on glass. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. We thank you all for your continued support. The ice planet of Ilum hung in space like a frozen tear, white and pristine against the star-scattered void. Anakin's fighter descended through crystalline clouds, his breath fogging slightly in the cockpit despite the heating systems. Even R2 was unusually quiet, his electronic chirps subdued as if the droid could feel the weight of this place. The Jedi temple here was ancient, far older than the one on Coruscant. A meditation sanctuary carved directly into the ice cliffs, its entrance marked by statues of Jedi Masters whose names had been eroded by centuries of wind and snow. Anakin landed on the exterior platform, the fighter's engines sending up clouds of powder that caught the pale sunlight like diamond dust. He stood there for a moment, alone on the platform, wrapped in his heavy cloak. The silence was absolute, not the silence of space, which was merely the absence of sound, but the silence of presence, as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting. He told Obi-Wan he needed to attune with the Force, to clear his mind. Obi-Wan had approved with his usual concerned but trusting expression. The Council had been less enthusiastic, but they'd granted permission. What am I doing here? The entrance to the crystal caves gaped before him like a wound in the ice. He ignited his lightsaber, the familiar blue blade humming to life, casting dancing shadows across the frozen walls, and descended into the darkness. The caves were not merely caves. They were something alive, aware, pulsing with Force energy that made his teeth ache and his heart race. Anakin pushed deeper into the caverns, following a path that seemed to exist more in his mind than in physical reality. His lightsaber flickered, once, twice, the blade stuttering in a way that should have been impossible with a properly maintained weapon. Ice gave way to crystal, crystal gave way to shadow, shadow gave way to something else entirely, a cavern so large that his lightsaber's glow couldn't touch its ceiling. And there, in the center, sitting on a simple stone that shouldn't exist in a cave of ice, was a man. He was old, or perhaps he was young, or perhaps he was neither. His face was weathered yet timeless, his eyes holding depths that made Anakin think of binary stars collapsing into singularities. He wore robes that shifted between white and gray, and in his hand he held a lightsaber hilt unlike any Anakin had ever seen, its emitter housing a crystal that glowed with translucent ghostly white light. "You're trespassing. This is a sacred place. Only Jedi are permitted here." The man's lips curved slightly, his eyes opening fully to pin Anakin with a gaze that felt like being seen through several layers deeper than skin. "And what gives the Jedi the dominion over the Force's sanctuaries? Did they build this place, young Skywalker? Or did they merely inherit it, and forget who built it first?" Anakin's hand went to his lightsaber. The man stood then, fluid and unhurried, introducing himself as the Wayseker, a being with names older than the Republic itself, one who walked the third current that united light and dark, order and chaos. The very concept should have been impossible, heretical even, yet standing before this ancient presence, Anakin felt something shift in his understanding of reality. Time moved differently in the caves of Ilum. Days might have passed, or weeks. Anakin couldn't tell, and found he didn't care. There was no war here, no council demanding reports, no chancellor offering poisonous wisdom disguised as concern. There was only the Wayseeker's voice, calm and patient, and the Force itself, flowing through Anakin in ways he'd never imagined possible. They sat in meditation, the ancient teacher guiding him through techniques lost to the Jedi archives. The flow unbroken, a Force state where emotion and control intertwined rather than opposed each other. Feel the anger, not your anger at the council or your fear for your wife. Deeper, the anger of being born a slave, of watching your mother die. Don't release it, accept it. The Jedi teachings screamed at Anakin to let these emotions flow through him and dissipate like water through open fingers. But the Wayseeker taught something different. The anger was there, hot and sharp and justified, but so was the love. His love for Padme, for Obi-Wan, for the clones who fought beside him. The two emotions swirled together in his chest, not canceling each other out, but amplifying, creating something new. His entire body began to glow with soft blue-white light, and around him, the crystals of Ilum resonated, humming in frequencies that made reality itself seem thin. This was what the ancient Jedi knew before they split themselves into Jedi and Sith, before they chose sides in a war that was never meant to be fought. For the first time in years, maybe for the first time in his entire life, Anakin felt whole. The lessons continued, each one peeling back another layer of the lies he'd been taught. The Wayseeker showed him visions, not Force visions sent by the cosmic force, but memories pulled from the crystals themselves, from the very bones of Ilum. Ancient knowledge crystallized in frozen time. Anakin witnessed the Jedi Order, those ancient Force users who balanced the Bogan and the Ashla, who understood that suppressing either would lead to corruption. He saw their fall, the schism that birthed both Jedi and Sith, watched as an entire philosophy was torn in half and each half declared itself complete. He saw Revan, that legendary figure who'd walked both paths and been destroyed by choosing. He saw darkness and light locked in eternal combat, neither able to win, neither willing to surrender. You are the chosen one, but the Jedi misunderstood the prophecy. You're not destined to destroy the Sith. You're destined to end this cycle of halves pretending to be whole. He saw himself, potential futures branching like crystal formations. In one, he wore black armor and knelt before Palpatine. In another, he remained a Jedi and died old and unfulfilled. In a third, he simply walked away, his lightsaber glowing white, searching for something the war would never give him. The weight of these visions pressed down on Anakin like the ice above them. Every possible future seemed to demand sacrifice. Every path forward seemed to require him to abandon something essential. But the Wayseeker's presence remained steady, an anchor in the storm of possibility that threatened to overwhelm him completely. The holocommunicator chimed urgently, yanking Anakin back to reality. Obi-Wan's miniature form appeared above the device, his expression etched with concern that bordered on fear, the kind of worry that came from knowing someone you loved was changing in ways you couldn't follow. "Anakin, where have you been? You've missed 3 check-ins. The Council is demanding your return immediately." Something in Anakin's gaze must have changed, because Obi-Wan's frown deepened. He looked different, not older, but somehow more settled, as if he'd found a center point that had always eluded him before. His presence in the Force had shifted, become more complex, layered in ways that made even his old master pause. The Council wanted him back. The war continued without pause, and his absence had been noted. Obi-Wan spoke of duty and wisdom, of trusting the path they'd walked together since Anakin was 9 years old. But what if the path itself was incomplete? You must carry the truth back into their blindness. But know this, the truth you bring will burn you before it frees them. Enlightenment without acceptance becomes isolation. Anakin nodded, understanding the weight of what came next. He glanced at his lightsaber hilt, where his kyber crystal now pulsed with a different resonance. Still blue, but touched with white at its core, like dawn breaking through a sapphire sky. The crystal had changed because he had changed, attuning to his new understanding of balance. The real test wasn't learning the truth, it was carrying that truth back into a galaxy that had forgotten how to listen. The Jedi Council chamber felt smaller than Anakin remembered, or perhaps he'd simply grown too large for it. 12 masters sat in their ancient chairs, faces impassive, eyes weighing and judging. Even Obi-Wan, standing beside him, seemed part of the wall of skepticism that pressed in from all sides. Anakin told them everything, not about the Wayseker directly, but about the lessons, about learning to channel emotion without being consumed by it, about discovering that attachment, properly understood, could be a source of strength rather than weakness, about balance being not the absence of darkness, but the integration of all aspects of the Force into a cohesive whole. His words fell into the chamber like stones into deep water, creating ripples that disturbed the surface but couldn't penetrate the depths. Dangerous thinking this is. The dark side emotion feeds. Beware, young Skywalker. The line between balance and darkness, thinner than ice on Ilum, it is. The silence that followed was deafening. Mace Windu questioned whether Anakin thought 6 days on Ilum had revealed what thousands of Jedi Masters over thousands of years had missed. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable, the fear beneath it even more so. Maybe those Masters were too afraid to look. The war is destroying the Order, and when I find a path forward, you shut me down because it doesn't fit your 1,000-year-old teachings? He turned and strode from the chamber, ignoring Obi-Wan's protests. Behind him, he heard Mace Windu saying they should have never made him a knight, that he was too unstable. The Council's rejection wasn't unexpected, but it still cut deep, proof that enlightenment could be the loneliest burden of all. The confrontation with Count Dooku came 3 weeks later, on the Bridge of the Invisible Hand. General Grievous had been captured during a Republic ambush over Coruscant, and Dooku arrived to oversee his rescue. It should have been a repeat of their previous battles, rage and technique colliding, darkness versus light, Sith versus Jedi locked in their eternal dance. Instead, Anakin fought with something entirely new. He felt Dooku's anger, his bitterness at the Jedi's failures, his genuine belief that only through control could the galaxy be saved. He felt the Count's weariness, his growing doubts about Sidious's promises, and beneath it all, he felt the fear. The same fear that drove every Sith, every Jedi, every being trying to impose order on an inherently chaotic universe. I have no master, not the Council, not the Chancellor, not the Sith, not the Jedi. I am the balance. Anakin disarmed Dooku without hatred, brought him to his knees without rage, held the twin lightsabers to the old man's neck with compassion. Obi-Wan, injured in the corner from an earlier blow, called out for him to stop. But this wasn't the old way, it was something different. He raised the blades and brought them down, ending Dooku's life cleanly, without ceremony or satisfaction or the dark pleasure that usually accompanied such acts. You are what I could never be. The Count's body fell, and Anakin felt the death ripple through the Force, not as triumph or tragedy, but simply as transformation. Obi-Wan stared at him with an expression caught between pride and fear, seeing in his former Padawan something that defied every category the Jedi had taught them to recognize. The Jedi Temple balcony had always been Anakin's thinking place. At night, with Coruscant's lights stretching to every horizon, he could almost forget the weight of prophecy and expectation pressing down on his shoulders. Almost. Obi-Wan found him there, as he always did, drawn by the bond they shared that transcended words or doctrine. His old master spoke of change, of alien serenity that frightened him because he couldn't understand it. Anakin wasn't falling. Obi-Wan could sense that clearly, but this new path was one the older Jedi couldn't follow, and the gulf between them had never felt wider despite their physical proximity. Master Windu discovered the truth. Palpatine is Sidious, the Sith Lord behind everything. They're going to arrest him. They want you to stay at the temple. They don't trust your judgment where he's concerned. Anakin's blood ran cold, but his mind remained clear. The Wayseker's final words echoed through his consciousness. Balance begins when you cease obeying either side. If Windu killed Palpatine, the Sith would be destroyed, but so would any hope of true reform. The Jedi would emerge victorious, unchanged, still blind to their own rigidity. The cycle would continue, endlessly repeating. He arrived at the Chancellor's office to find the confrontation already in progress. Mace Windu standing over Palpatine, purple blade raised, the Sith Lord on his knees with lightning crackling weakly from his fingertips. Both men pleaded their cases, each offering a different prison disguised as salvation. Anakin looked at both of them, these twin mirrors of obsession, and ignited his lightsaber. The blade that emerged was pure white, like starlight crystallized, like truth given form. Both men stared in shock as the Force erupted around him, holding them frozen, separating them. I'm not Jedi. I'm not Sith. I'm what the galaxy has forgotten. I'm the balance itself, and I will end this cycle even if I must stand alone. Anakin Skywalker walked away from both Jedi and Sith that night, releasing his hold on the two men who had tried to claim his destiny. Behind him, Palpatine seethed with fury at plans disrupted, and Windu struggled with a failure he couldn't comprehend. Obi-Wan's presence reached out through the Force. Confusion, fear, love, all tangled together in a desperate attempt to understand what his brother had become. His ship waited in the temple hangar, and beyond it, the galaxy stretched infinite and broken and waiting. Order 66 would not come tonight. His intervention had shattered Palpatine's carefully laid timeline like ice under pressure. The war would continue, but differently now, with cracks forming in both Jedi and Sith certainty, with whispers of a third option beginning to spread among those brave enough to question. Anakin departed Coruscant not toward darkness, but toward light, toward balance. His lightsaber hung at his belt, his white blade a promise and a challenge to every dogma the galaxy had built over millennia of conflict. He was alone now, truly alone in a way he'd never been even as a slave on Tatooine, because he'd chosen a path that had no temple, no order, no master to guide him. But in the caves of Ilum, an ancient being called the Wayseker smiled, knowing that the first seed had been planted. Even if Anakin failed, even if he fell, even if the galaxy ground him to dust, he had proved something essential that echoed through the Force itself. Balance was possible. The third current could flow again, and perhaps, in time, others would have the courage to follow his example. The Force flows through all things, dividing only when we demand it choose. In Anakin Skywalker's choice, impossible, imperfect, but authentically his own, we glimpse the truth the galaxy spent millennia forgetting, that real power lies not in conquering darkness or serving light, but in accepting both as aspects of a greater whole. This was what might have been. This was the path not taken. But every choice creates echoes, and every echo can become a voice, and every voice can inspire new generations to ask, what if there was another way? If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of what might have been, remember to hit that subscribe button and join us for more explorations of the infinite possibilities within that galaxy far, far away. May the Force be with you, always.